mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
And
fine.
then I know that you gave me some homework, didn't you? I can't remember what it was. How did I switch?
Gosh, I know we kind of talked about a few different things, just to kind of see, yeah, as far as kind of what you guys want, how you want the group to kind of stay together, what you really want to communicate to them. I remember we were talking about that, and then we also talked about, I know later that day you had a meeting with the team manager, so you were gonna kind of see what his take was on how to kind of approach the team, and then I was also gonna, once I heard back kind of what it is that was needed and wanted, then I was gonna start communicating with my friend who could kind of potentially help with translating and also kind of joining some meetings if possible, and kind of also doing the stuff that you feel like you guys are having a little struggle with as far as kind of connecting with the guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is the manager. We've arranged 2 or 3 times to speak to him, and um, we haven't managed to get through to him yet. That's a big problem. I think people are maybe afraid to speak, or it's difficult, like it's quite hard to keep the communication going. I don't know if they're afraid, or if they're just, the whole situation is like sad and desperate,
Yeah.
So
I have you asked any of them kind of what's been going on or what's been the challenge with communicating?
yeah, and they always say like they're okay, or it's always, but we don't get very deep or very far.
Okay.
But I know it must be, they must be afraid. I know that from what I can see, it's like I know in the past few days there's been a problem in Jenin, which is very close by,
Yeah.
Um, and our friend, oh, here comes Lola. Let's
Okay. Perfect. Okay. That makes sense. Hey Lola.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, long time.
I know it's been some time.
Yeah, how are you?
It can't complain. Doing very good. How are you enjoying your trip? Are you still out on your trip?
I am, yeah. Became an extended one. Yeah.
Those are the best kinds of trips.
Yeah, yeah. It was been doing me good. Yeah, really good.
Glad to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Martin. Sorry, Martin and I were just talking about we kind of started talking about some of the challenges that kind of the teams are facing in terms of communication. So sorry, Martin. I know Lola jumped in right then.
No, it's okay. We're just talking about Basil and how we haven't managed to speak to Basil yet, and how maybe it's not just that it's not just I don't think it's just a problem with oh, getting the arrangements right. I think there's actually a barrier with them being not afraid to speak, but the situation's quite dark and the future's so uncertain. So I was just wondering how to bridge this problem and how to reassure people and give them a reason for speaking to us, That's
Yeah.
it's difficult.
I called him up today. I just called because he apologized to me. He apologized, sort of saying, because we've been asking to maybe have a Zoom call with him. Zoom seems to be a bit of a barrier. So just want to kind of just call him up. And he wrote to me today, sort of saying, yeah, sorry, he's been busy, but I just called him up and he was like, so happy to hear from me. But and he was like, we miss you guys. But to go much further than like, but then he was kind of too busy to properly take the call. And I tried to express that like Martin and I really want to find out like what's happening with the boys. Um, but yeah, he was like, give me a call back in 15 minutes, but then I couldn't reach him again. So there's just this little, yeah, just this sort of initial barrier of just trying to get in touch with them, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine, I mean, the situation on the ground has got to be complex and difficult, and so it makes sense that there's just these barriers. And then with the boys, you guys haven't had much luck in terms of reaching out to them and connecting with them.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to
Well,
know.
we need to go through Basil, right?
Oh, do you? Okay,
The team coach. Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah, you guys still have your group chat going on? Is there any communication there?
Not recently. I sometimes send photos of me and my son in the football things. We were discussing like Madrid are playing Borussia Dortmund next week in the final, so we kind of had a bit of a discussion about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. We just talk about football, but yeah, it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to. I don't know. Maybe if we can understand. I don't want to turn it on to you, but how did when you were a kid in Afghanistan? How did people was it more like a government that approached you? It wasn't like people like us wouldn't approach people in Afghanistan, right? It would be through organizations and big things more than because it was probably before the internet, not before the internet, but before.
Okay. It's a little different as it relates to kind of when I grew up. I mean there I really didn't have any communication with the outside world. I mean, I think this is before like any I mean, we're talking about like uh middle to late 90s and then early 2000s. And so connection with the internet and all that was quite foreign. And so, yeah, if you got any assistance, it was kind of just kind of hearing from the UN when we went through refugee program. So I know the situation is a bit different in terms of kind of having access to people outside of the country when I did. So, but at the same time, I mean, I think kind of looking at the situation on the ground, I imagine their day-to-day thinking is just about survival. And so, um, in some sense, I think the pleasure and the fun of football perhaps becomes secondary or tertiary or even like one of the last things they think about, even though as kids that's the primary thing they should think about, right? The fun. But the situation unfortunately is unrealistic for them. um yeah, and I'm thinking as I guess if we were to if the communication kind of barrier wasn't there, and unfortunately it is, and I can get one of my friends again who is very much deep into soccer and enjoys soccer, but also is from Saudi Arabia, speaks um Arabic, and also is very interested in like kind of he has like a humanistic heart and would be a really appropriate person to kind of help navigate some conversations. But at the same time, it sounds like you two have put in a lot of effort, and unfortunately the feedback or the response hasn't been there. And so I wonder if bringing somebody else in, how much that would kind of help start that conversation, because it sounds like it's more so the challenges that they're facing on their end, right? That they can't communicate or aren't able to communicate. So just kind of want to hear what you think that would do if I was to kind of bring on one of my friends who has a little bit more cultural awareness, can speak to them a little bit more clearly and better. So yeah, just kind of want to hear your thoughts. I'm sorry, I have my nephew on the background, so I'll mute myself.
That's okay. It's okay. So yeah, a couple of the kids have got pretty good English, but it's just I don't know. How do we once we've got the manager, then we need to approach the parents. But it's like you said, what is in it for them? Apart from we don't want to talk about the end goal, which is maybe a trip to Europe or something. But like you say, how do we give them the incentive to talk to us? I mean, right now there's not really a reason, and it's yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Lola? I don't know.
I think that I don't know, it's hard to imagine how different the situation is now from what it was when we met them. But I did feel like the boys were very like, there was one boy who really, a couple of guys really spoke brilliant English, and they were so proud of it. They were so proud that they spoke great English, and they were so proud that they could be almost like a spokesperson for the rest of the boys and communicate, like be the translator. And it gave them this sort of sense of like responsibility and like and pride that they did have this good education and ability with communicating with us, and they could sort of voice what was happening with the whole team. And I really sensed from that boy Evan that he really enjoyed doing that. And I know the situation is so different now, but I could imagine that he would also feel the same way now, that he would be happy to speak with us as like, I don't know, like a representative for the whole team, to speak on behalf of the whole team and the boys and sort of summarize what's going on. I think he would be happy to. It's just a matter of getting them. It's like the very technical, like how do we just get Basil and one boy together with us to speak and try and communicate what's going on with the team. Like that's the next step, what we need to do. And I think it's possible. We just need to like, it's just about clarity and being organized, and yeah, I think it's possible, but I guess the other major barrier I think for us is like not wanting to give any kind of false hope. And like if we're basically just reaching out and wanting to find out the situation, like we haven't, maybe there's this hesitancy on our behalf because we haven't got something to offer really great to offer or give right now. And I think that you always want to, yeah, like I've just managed to get like a conversation started up with this girl that we met when we were out there. But it feels again like it's almost like, okay, I'm glad that I've got a conversation going with her again, but it does feel like a bit stilted until it's like I want to offer something good, like offer something actual, like real to her. Yeah, but it doesn't invalidate that the fact that just communicating is good in and of itself.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, that was clear, but yeah.
No, and I think the point, at least part of it is what I hear is like, I mean, I think sustaining that connection and relationship is like an important and vital part. Because I was telling Martin the past few times, I mean, they're gonna get through this, like one way or another. They're gonna get through it, and unfortunately, we don't know how long it's gonna take or when that will be. But ultimately, like they're gonna get through the struggles that they're going through right now. And so once they're there, I think the opportunity will open up much more to be able to do the project in the way that you guys want. And so, I mean, I think just kind of, I think maybe being transparent and open with them that you guys just want to have and sustain like ongoing communication and relationship in whatever way possible. And I know that won't be possible from every kid. And so you kind of have to, in some sense, be consistent and persistent to try and have that communication in a respectful manner. And kind of seeing once the manager is able to connect you with the kids, if because it sounds like he's like the main point of contact every time you want to reach out to the kids, right? Aside from the group text. Yeah.
Basil,
And so
this is maybe where you could help us if your friend could maybe put that into Arabic. And we can present that to Basil to give to the parent of it, for example, Evan.
That's a great idea.
We just want to provide some support and encouragement, and it's just like an outlet for this frustration. They must be feeling so frustrated and like the world's stopped. It must feel like the world stopped.
Yeah.
So maybe we could write a message in English, you and I, Martin, and then we could ask that to be translated, and then it just made it slightly more official.
Yeah, and I think that would be something that I would think about is like, if you guys have kind of like a messaging and then a few pointers that you want to kind of get across, I could have my friend kind of record that and send it in a video to you guys and maybe be able to distribute that or that in addition, maybe writing, because I think part of it is too, if they hear and understand like, hey, the message is being directed to each of the kids in some sense and their club and like everything related to them, I think that would probably help out. So that's one way to maybe see, and then offer, I mean, if you two are able to maybe kind of, I know part of it is like holding like a consistent type of meeting, where if you're able to kind of every, let's say, and just have to be like, the example is like every Sunday, maybe at this time, like you and Martin will be online on whatever link or on WhatsApp. If anyone can join, that would be great. So we can check in. But I think just kind of having that open space, because part of it is like, certain times, like with my friends, that's what we do is like, we have a group of people who would like to kind of check in with on a regular basis. And then we just kind of have an open link at the same time every specific day. And then whoever can join, say hi, and even for a second or two, and then kind of go back. so at least that they know that they have like a community somewhere that they could go to for like a day or for an hour or whatever the case may be. And maybe you could you two could come up with a way of like how that would be possible, saying like, 10 a.m. on Sundays at, you know, this time, hop on if you're able to, just say hi, and then have that communication going that way. And then I'll see if my friend could kind of also hop on and see if he can kind of help translate it. But also it looks like there's a few kids who would be willing and able to do that too. So so that's kind of one way I feel like you could kind of bring it all back, really all back in. Just so they kind of have a space that they could just jump on and talk and see each other's faces, even if they can't say anything to each other or to you guys, and understand it. So
That's great. Yeah.
because right now it's about keeping the group together, I imagine, right? The best you can. So kind of giving them space or some sort of platform to kind of jump on, whether it's a link if they have access to it, or again, I know WhatsApp has a few features where you could just kind of have different callers just join in and say hi, do that. So
yeah, but it should be fun as well. It should be fun for them. It should be something and it's like an escape and also somehow creative. But the thing the something that keeps in my head is like it's like this sort of fear that they're afraid of. I think they must be afraid. That's what they must be afraid. I don't know how you felt. Maybe you don't remember when you were a kid, but aren't you afraid they must be afraid to speak out in public because I don't want to say the enemy or the other, they could be a target, this is in my head, like they could be a target for,
well, I don't know how much kids and I've never really been in that situation. Particularly, I mean, I think they know that there's some of the world is supporting them, and then there's the other half of the world that's looking away, right? I mean, I think that's their reality. Is like, and so I imagine it's like what their families tell them and what they see and what they hear of like who's supporting them, who's not. And so I think part of it is like maybe just simply kind of going to them like, hey, how do you all feel about, and kids are smart enough to kind of be transparent and honest and say, hey, like, here's why I'm afraid of talking, here's why I really want to talk, and things of that sort. Because you're right, that could be the case for some of them, but I don't think that that's the case for all of them, because particularly if they're still interested in listening and engaging, and having their stories be heard, I think, I don't know if all of them are afraid in that sense.
Yeah, they're probably just more not afraid, but just like fed up.
Yeah, I'm sure they feel various emotions, rightfully so, for different reasons. But I think they also need to know that, and I'm sure they know that, there are people who are, as much as they want to do stuff, like the two of you want to help them get out and do this tour. There are some barriers, and I think they recognize that. But I think showing face and showing like consistency in terms of not a false promise, but like, hey, that I may not know where you're at or how you're feeling, but here we're going to be here as much as we can, because you two are continuing to engage and think about them, and and these are important conversations that they may not see, but it's important for them to kind of in some ways know.
Yeah. I mean, do you speak like do you speak to kids from various parts? You know what, like you do like trauma therapy, right? So
Right.
do you speak to kids from the Middle East, or is it
it's kind of like various populations. So whoever I'm able to see, it is just because I was born there and know the culture. It's a lot easier to speak with kids from the Middle East. Granted, if they speak English, because I also don't speak Arabic or Farsi as good as I'd like to. So yeah, I mean, I certainly have. I think, and I've spoken to a lot of kids who have been like in very horrific situations, like these kids are. But in order to really engage with them in a healthy and productive way, like the thing that's causing their pain and misery and trauma, like that has to be gone. And unfortunately, it's not for them. They're living in it. So you
Yeah.
can't bring that up, because when you bring it up, it could really trigger them. It could, like, you know, make them close off and be scared and be fearful. And so that's why it's like a hard line to tiptoe over.
Well, this is
And that's why you want to kind of keep it surface level.
I mean, this is what, when I speak to people here, they say, well, why don't you just, they should just go and like what you done. You left Afghanistan, right? And people that I speak to say they should just leave. Now, don't you want to return to Afghanistan and live there?
Would I want to return to Afghanistan and live there? No.
Well, that's completely different, because the people in Palestine, they want to stay. They don't want to.
Yeah. No, for me, I think if the difficulty of life wasn't there, if the trauma and the pain wasn't there, yeah. I mean, I think for the Palestinians, you're right. It's completely different, right? I mean, I think they love their land, and I love Afghanistan in that sense. If the war wasn't there, if the Taliban wasn't there, my answer would be like, absolutely, I'd love to go back there. But the trauma is still there, and I think for the kids here, like, of course, they want to be in their homeland and they want to go back. But the situation is just a little bit different, so yeah, I think that's the hard part, and the big difference with them is like they're currently still going through their trauma, and so so I imagine that's also hard, or part of the lack of engagement. I think it's more so that than what you mentioned was like their fear of speaking out, because they know like the worst has already in a sense happened to them. What else could go wrong by them talking? So I think it's more so like their trauma holding them back than anything else.
Yeah, I spoke to a yoga, like this, connected with this yoga teacher in Palestine who does a lot of like works a lot of interesting groups like trauma informed yoga, and yeah, she was just like, this is so not PTSD. This is like we were in the midst of an ongoing like perpetual trauma. Like we have nowhere near reached like the post traumatic situation. Like this is the ongoing like kind of perpetual trauma that they're sort of experiencing.
Yeah, and so that's why I think that kind of meeting them where they're at is like has to be the goal at this point, right? Like if they're able to give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes of their time, take that, right? And I think that's the other thing is like, I know we live in a very, very different environment where we get like the dangers, and the safety isn't like a big issue, and safety is the biggest thing over there, but without them knowing their safety and then also their next meal, if their survival. And when they're in different spaces, like it could be hard to relate in that sense. And also I imagine naturally as humans we have this tendency to compare, and so I'm sure in a sense they compare like our situations, like, well, of course you would say like you want to do this when you're far away and not in danger and not in the situation, whereas we are going through this. And so I think there may be a little bit disconnect there too, which there's nothing you can do about, but just be like, I may not know, but I like understand and respect kind of what you're saying. So so yeah, I think the complexity of it is just because with everything that they're in the middle of right now, that's kind of what makes hard a lot of these engagements and conversations. But I think on your guys' part, like if you can continue to remain persistent, again, take what they can give you, ultimately, I think hopefully it'll be a good result in one way or another.
And do you think we should do a video message? Like, should we try doing a video message? Because it is quite, I don't know, then they'll have that instant remembrance of like what we only met them, like a couple of times, but maybe that will trigger remembering that and create that connection rather than just like these sort of quite distant sounding texts.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that would honestly be good. Maybe if you guys could, have, a few minutes of the kind of messaging to them, and then what I could do is, also have my friend kind of say the same thing in Arabic. So, sorry, 1 second, I need to let the dog in.
That could be good, right?
Yeah, video message, and then we just send it to Let's just send it.
Yeah.
By email.
And then in Arabic. That would be brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I could have my friend include this exact same message and speech that you guys give to them, and just kind of have that as like a video at the end so that they know what you guys are talking about. Unless you kind of want subtitles in Arabic, I'm sure that could be also something that could be done too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea. That's what we should do next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of taking a step back. How are you two doing as far as just kind of? I know sometimes, like as humans, like I have a hard time when when I'm in a place where I want something to be done and it's not getting done, and there's a lot of like internal like conflict and frustration within me, and that could kind of cause me to not only sometimes be angry and sad and defeated, but also a lot of other things kind of come up. So just for the two of you, I know we've talked for a little bit, but it seems like you're kind of consistently facing barriers. But how are you two doing with that? How are you navigating or managing that?
Lola, you go first.
I think, I don't know. For me, I think that it's felt a bit slightly better recently because for me, I don't know why, but I feel like we've had a bit of space sometimes, like the two of us, and then I think when we give each other space to sort of like think things through like independently, and then I don't know, and there's sort of some space, and then something comes up like naturally and organically again, and I don't know if I'm really explaining it well, but I think there's like when it can feel if we're constantly trying to like bash our heads together and be like come up with a solution constantly, I think that's when it gets like really frustrating and like it's hard to see a way forward. But when we sort of allow these like gaps and spacious things of just us to like do our own exploration, then I feel like ideas or little things pop up and then we come back and there's I get this like renewed hope again, or like a renewed idea, or like there's it keeps it sort of fresh and encouraging. And I just know that I don't know, even when I'm pursuing my own stuff, like the passion for this and the need to continue on this work, it keeps coming up. Like even when I think I'm pursuing my own stuff and investing in my own self, like it keeps the desire to help these people keeps coming up, and like it's like an undeniable like need, like you have to keep doing it. And so but it's coming up in a more, I always want it to be natural and organic and coming really from the heart rather than it feeling like dutiful and hopeless and like if you know what I mean. So I'm
Yeah.
just that's sort of what I've felt like recently. And I feel like it's yeah, and then we're just reminded why we're doing this. And I'll call Martin, I'll go, hey, like, I don't know, like, and we have this sort of like revived hope again or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know if that makes sense. I'm sorry, it's like almost 8 o'clock and I haven't had dinner. So I
No,
might be talking a bit like airy fairy. Sorry.
it made sense to me, so no worries.
Okay. What do you think, Martin? Maybe you don't feel the same way. I know it's a different experience, but
No, I understand completely what you're saying, but last time I spoke to Wise, we met, I was thinking about three different realities of the big picture, which is the past few days has been very positive with Ireland and Norway and Spain. They said they were going to recognize Palestine. I don't know. I think it's just really good, and that really encourages the big picture.
Yeah.
But even though they're still in the West Bank, they're still horrific. In Gaza, I can't even think about that. But then there's the reality of my inner personal reality, which is quite dark. And then this is great. This like communicating with Lola and sometimes with you, Wise, that kind of is sometimes great, and then sometimes we hit a block, and then it can be difficult. So there's three different realities. That's how I see it. So the big picture right now is like quite hopeful. Our relationship's going okay, but I've got the dark inside stuff, which so there's three different things for me, you know.
Yeah. What's hey baby, give me 1 second. I'll be with you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, I was telling that to my nephew.
Oh, okay.
He was walking over and he likes to just jump up and have some fun with me.
How old is he?
He is gonna be 4 in July. So yeah. Yeah, Martin, you're right, and I think that's the thing is, I think the outside world and even things within us will consistently change, and I think for me, like the question really was hitting at like, how are you personally doing, right? Like I know that this means a lot to the both of you every time I hear you to talk about it, whether it's good emotions come up or unpleasant emotions come up. Like I could see that this takes a big sense of energy and emotion out of it from the two of you, and I think sometimes, particularly with like things being stagnant and things being uncertain, and even some positive news from the, with Palestine, with some nations trying to say we'll recognize Palestine, like the good and the bad news will come up. And I think the goal, if this is going to kind of consistently sustain, and as Lola said, and even yourself, like new moments and new of encouragement kind of come up. What's going to be important is like, there's a lot of pain, or there's a lot of things within us that we just kind of need to deal with, so that the healthier kind of we are deep down, right, and clear we are, the easier things can be for us to observe from the outside, right? And so I'm glad that you recognize that there's 3 realities for you, Martin, right? The big picture, and these conversations are essential. But I think also what's significant is like, what's going on in there. Like if there's a lot of pain, like seeing if you can kind of attend to that too, because I think that is what often maybe overwhelms us personally, at least for me.
Well, it's basic things like sleeping and eating.
Yeah. Well, those are the most important things, right?
Yeah. And sometimes if I miss a sleep, and then that can be like quite devastating for the next few days,
Yeah.
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 Just the
basic. So I just kind of
like that. Like we're both quite similar like that. Like very feel a lot and quite like wired, and like don't find those things like resting very easy. Like those basic things like resting is quite difficult. And for me, eating, like eating, resting can be quite challenging when you just feel a lot and you're very like just sensitive like people.
Yeah, and then I think that's the thing is like recognizing that you feel a lot to the pain and suffering of other people, but at the same time, like you're part of people and humanity, and I think we have a great sense of responsibility to humanity and society and others, but also I think we're within humanity, and so we have a greater sense of responsibility for our own well-being, and being very like vigilant and like cognizant of like how are we doing personally. Are we eating enough? Are we sleeping enough? Are we kind of disconnecting when we need to? Are we kind of finding various ways of kind of to re-energize ourselves? Because taking that responsibility of like and owning up like that self-care and then the care for your own well-being and having that responsibility, I think that kind of helps you understand like just as much energy and effort you want to give towards somebody else, like I hope you owe that and give that to yourself, because when you forget about that, then we're really going in half empty, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter how full you want to go in, if you're empty within yourself, if you're pained and if you're neglected yourself, then you can't go in even if you want to, right? And so it's important because like I think and there's examples of that all around us. So for me, really kind of checking in with the two of you constantly is like making sure like, hey, how are you doing personally? Because this project is significant, and the what's happening is like, in some ways horrific, and many things, and it takes a lot of impact on us because you both feel a lot, you both take on a lot, and I think when you recognize that that's kind of ingrained in you and who you are as a human and as a compassionate human, you're just bound to just feel a lot, and not all of that is going to be positive. In fact, it seems like a lot of that is negative. And so finding ways to just be gentle with yourself, just kind of go for a walk, talk to a friend, take a step back, express emotions in whatever way necessary. It's important because you two are important humans as well, just as important as anyone else, right?
Thanks, man. You too.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, and I say I know that because not in a conceited way, but in a way that I know my importance in this world is significant, because I see the significance of everybody else, and if I want to show up for anyone else, I have to show up for myself too. And of course, we neglect that, and then try not to be self-centered. But and that's not the goal here. The goal here is to say, hey, like, are you taking care of like this beautiful person that's trying to give out as much as they can?
Well, you could give us some advice then, because like you're an elite athlete, I think. So it's the discipline that to wake up and go for a walk and drink enough water. I mean, how do we get this? I don't have this discipline, you know. I have to really force myself just to get up and go for a walk in the morning, or to drink enough water. Like I have to. It's a struggle just to be disciplined, you know. Now, did that come to you naturally, or did you learn it?
I think a little bit of both, right? Like I think as a kid, like you kind of had no choice but to get up and find your way. Whether you felt tired, sick, you know, no matter what was going on in the outside world or the inside world, you just had to do. And sometimes, you know, we have to really just remember like everything inside of us, emotionally and outside, doesn't have to go right in order for us to like just take care of ourselves. Like taking care of yourselves, for instance, for a walk, you just need your legs and some shoes and just get out. And so sometimes kind of just making it surface level and not going too deep about it.
Yeah, but it's
right?
getting from the bed to the door.
Oh, come on, you can do that. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
And so make it mechanical, right? Just pay attention to just if you need to write like 3 things. Okay, as soon as I get out of bed, sit in bed, put your feet on the floor, have your shoes, tie it in, and then just walk. Right. Like if you need to make it mechanical, just so that your body remembers it, just do that. Right. Until like you want to add emotions or thoughts into it. But sometimes we don't have to overthink it. We just do it. Right. We just go ahead and just put on the shoes, and because you don't need emotions, you don't need thoughts, you don't need feelings to go for a walk. You just need your legs and some muscles, which you have, right? Naturally.
You know it's gonna be good like once you're out there, you know, because I keep doing that when I swim every day, like twice a day being here, and it's like I know it's gonna, and I swim when it's cold, like in the like really early in the morning or something, and I know it's gonna hurt maybe for like 10 seconds. It might be painful, but I know how good it's gonna be like when I come out. So you gotta just like, I don't know, just remember how good it's gonna be when you're out there, and like it's good for you, and you're investing in like yourself. Anyway, sorry, I know we've only got 1 minute and a half, like 1 minute left.
No worries. So yeah, let's kind of maybe talk about kind of if you wanted to do the video and kind of send a message, because yeah, sometimes they just need to see your face, like, and you could call them by their names, and so that they know that she's talking about me, Martin's talking about me, and so that they know that like they're being seen, they're being heard, and just kind of sending them some like positive, hopeful messages, because hope is what we need, and hope is the only thing kind of that will keep this situation and their stories going. And so, yeah, I think doing that, and then if you need that translated in Arabic or said in Arabic, you can always do that too.
And how would we go about that in the practical? Like, would we record it, and how would we do that practical stuff? Do you know, Lola? Maybe.
No, on like we could even do it on Zoom, like
just put it on Zoom, record it, and send the file. Yeah.
And we'll send it on a WhatsApp group. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can have the manager join you guys, and you guys can say it in English, and then they could translate it in Arabic as you guys are talking, and I think that would be an easy way to kind of do it too. So, but also kind of thinking about if you can find a way to hold space, even if it's like one person that jumps on a call, then do that. I think that would be very helpful. It'd be a good start.
Thank you, Wise.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, I'm not doing anything. I mean, you two are putting your, hearts in it. I'm just kind of here showing up in whatever way I can. But no, I appreciate what you two have done so far and are continuing to do with your efforts and energy.